Let's see if everything finally worked for once. Let's see if everything finally's working. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Haha, scaredy cat to start off the stream. Say hi, Nixie. From your big Tommy. How's everyone doing today? Everyone ready to talk about some HHN speculation? All right, bye. Yeah, let's check in, let's chat a little bit. Horror Night Nightmares so wonderfully has gifted us another spec map, and we've covered this in the past, and we covered Jack and Oddfellow Chaos and Control last time, so I'm not going to go too in-depth on those, unless, of course, y'all have anything specifically you want to talk about and request, but there is a few things that I found peculiar, and one thing that I thought of today that I do want to mention. Give everyone a little bit of time to fall on in and see if my tech is working. So far, the answer is maybe. Here we go. Janice, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. What's got you most hyped so far, theoretically? Why can't... let me try this. It's like starting over every time I do this. I see what you did there, Josh. Maybe a hair quiet, but There's that. Slightly better. I'm not peeking. Hellraiser? Yeah, let's go. Yeah, I'm very glad to see Hellraiser still on our spec map and not Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, even though I did have hope that, you know, maybe we're getting flesh wounds, something like that again, but I have to burp, sorry. There it goes. All right, Fort Nightmares has me fired up with rage. Oh boy, we're gonna talk about Fort Nightmares here in a little bit. Don't you worry. We are going to cross that bridge. I don't know how to phrase this. I wouldn't worry too much about Fort Nightmares, and I will tell you why here in just a minute. Let's see. Josh, what do you think we should start with? Think we should start with what I was messaging you about earlier that you said was a little bit of hopium? Actually, maybe the banana is just Donkey Kong, guys. Like, come on. It's actually just the Seth Rogen laugh from the Super Mario movie for, like, on loop in Is it New York? Oh, it's Central Park. LOL. R.I.P. I think it could work. Why not? You know what? While we're on the topic of Fort Nightmares, let's just jump. Oh, Josh, you'll try that? All right, let's just jump right into some theories here. Let's see. Does this have the map? All right, here we go. Here's our spec map. Pulled on up. Once again, thank you, Horror Night Nightmares. Even though spec isn't my favorite thing in the world, it's awesome that they do this for the community and for us each year to give us stuff to talk about and add fuel to the fire. So I'm very, very appreciative of that. A few things, I guess, updates on this that I kind of want to touch on. The one that I was thinking about most today is our little alien cowboy dude right down here. Now, I was talking to Josh about this. He said it was hopium, copium, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, it got me thinking. Something specific that I think is worth mentioning about this entire map so far that I've kind of touched on in the past is that this year seems very much to be following the trends of 2015 much more than 2021. And what I mean by that is this last anniversary year that we had in 2020, 2021, whatever you want to consider it, was less of a full-on fan service event and more of a, I don't want to say regular year of HHN, but we got original ideas that didn't necessarily tie into the overall lore and stories that HHN has had for however many years. We got Wicked Growth, Puppet Theater, you know, original haunts that, while they contain tons of Easter eggs, they weren't directly inspired by, or, you know, they weren't just properties we'd already seen brought back in a different way. I guess maybe you could argue Wicked Growth a little bit since it was Cary, Ohio, but whereas 2015, everything was fan service. What should have these memorized off the top of my head after the countdown. But you know, every original haunt that was brought back was kind of like a spin-off or a sequel or a mismatch of previous original content ideas, and I'm not sure how well that necessarily worked in my mind. You know, got Body Collectors Recollections, where it's just body collectors in Shady Brook. Very good haunt, but you could have removed either one of those, and yeah, I feel like it would have been the same exact thing. You know, Run, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, not a great reception trying to play up on the camp that year. Jack Presents Monsters and Mayhem, best anniversary house that's ever been done. Said that in my last countdown episode. Still stand by it. Really cool way to present everything. Yes, I agree with that, Josh. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. That is a good way of putting it because, again, 2020 took a different path than 2015, so we've had time to, you know, learn and grow and see what worked. And while I'm getting some of the same vibes this year, I'm much more optimistic, I should say. Except for the one rumor I heard about Blood and Guts being Run and HR Blood and Guts. That seems very weird. But I digress. Okay, anyways, on to my theory that I have been teasing here. Let me get everything pulled up. So, all of this to be said, I was thinking, noticing that a lot of the original content this year seems to be in the vein of 2015, where it's, you know, properties that we have seen in the past in some capacity. Let's see, where are you going to open? Perfect. And me just kind of racking my brain about what all of the things that we've seen across the years, and taking into account some certain trends that we've seen fairly recently at Horror Nights. One of those is Slaughter Cinema. We got Cat Lady of Crooked Lane, Hatchet and Chains, Slaughter Cinema 2. We have had a mini resurgence of Slaughter Cinema ideas in the past few years, and I don't know what got me thinking about it, but I started thinking about one particular section, and that section is Amazon Cannibals from Planet Hell. Stuttering just a little bit there, but well, you know, it's not necessarily a perfect theory. This shot of the landscape right here is something that I was thinking about on my drive. You know, Cowboys and Aliens is something that could very easily be misconstrued. You know, you see a giant western barren landscape, rumors start swirling, and oh yeah, that kind of looks like the Wild West, and that kind of looks like sci-fi, so maybe it's Cowboys and Aliens. But what if it isn't? What if it's just Planet Hell? You know, like I said, I could very easily, in passing, mistake this as being something Western, had the spaceship, all the spaceship aesthetics not necessarily been there. You could argue a little bit less as you go through the actual section, but, you know, something fun to speculate. I don't think I've heard anyone else say this rumor. I don't think I'm going to get any brownie points for coming up with this idea, but I think it's something fun to talk about and to read between the lines. I don't think it will be based off of Cowboys versus Aliens, even though I would love to see Daniel Craig at HHN in some capacity. All right. So, what do y'all think about that theory? Am I just absolutely cooked, chat? Am I out of my mind, or you think maybe there's a little bit of plausibility to it? Either way, I think it would be cool. I don't think we've had, well, I think repeating a Western haunt at this point in time, even with something new and different like adding aliens into the mix, right after we had Hatchet and Chains, right after we theoretically have Sinners just across the other tents, after we just had things like Blood Moon and Darkest Deal. I feel like it's too close to things that we've already seen, that I feel like that theory's a little, I don't want to say too out there, but I think that we can, I think there's something being missed. At least I hope there's something being missed. You know, in a sense, take the train out of Hatchet and Chains, replace it with aliens, you kind of get the same vibe. Also, welcome everyone that's popped into chat while I've been ranting and haven't checked. Josh, you may not tolerate Hollywood slander. I do not tolerate totally killer slander in this chat, just for the record. Fallon, what's up? Hello, I'm glad y'all stopped by. Hope y'all are doing well. I miss y'all. Mid-hopium. All right, Josh, hopium would also imply that I had an emotional investment in this idea, and I really don't. I just thought it was something to think about more than anything. It's trash night for us too, and I'm off tomorrow, so I'm gonna forget to do it in the morning. I can guarantee you. Because normally we take the trash out on the way to driving into work. Guarantee you I'm gonna sleep in and or start editing first thing in the morning and not take the trash out. Anyways, there's my hopium for the time being. So yes, Fortnitemares. I promised we would talk about this. A few more people have spilled in. I think now is a good time to kind of talk about that. So looking at our little banana peel here in Central Park, the big thing, the hot ticket, the HHN is ruined forever rumor currently is a scare zone based off of Fortnitemares, which for the uninitiated, including myself, I'm fairly certain is just like the Fortnite version of HHN or of classic monsters. At this point, Fortnite, I feel like, has every single IP that you could possibly imagine, so I'm not sure how to, I'm not sure what areas they could focus on. This could be something like All Night Die-In Take 927 from 2015, where they just brought every single horror movie character into the streets, from the black and white monsters to, they had Blumhouse, I think, in that zone as well, Carrie, and like a bunch of just random monsters that you wouldn't expect to see together. But yes, we'll talk about Hollywood here in a little bit, because Hollywood is goated. But why, how do I say this? Am I excited for Fortnitemares? No, not really. If that comes to fruition, I'm not super excited to experience it myself. But do I think Fortnitemares will be one of the best zones if it does come to the event? Yes. And the reason I'm going to say that is this. Horror Nights is made up of people. Not just ideas, but the people who are the lifeblood of this event. When I was at Universal in 2016, that was the first year that I was working at the parks, and I kind of had the opportunity to work HHN, and I decided not to. I like to travel and do HHN every night, and it's kind of hard to do 20 haunts every single night if you're working the event, so I passed on it. And after the event opened, and as I went through, and I experienced some of the great haunts and some of the worst haunts more and more, especially one in particular, Lunatic's Playground, which I'm sure everyone who experienced it in this chat has an opinion on that. Whether your opinion is the same as mine, I'm sure it's not too far off in the realm of quality. But all that to say, I got to thinking, like, you know, I love HHN so much. I would love to work this event. It would be so cool. And how would I feel if I ended up getting stuck either at ops, or either in the ops role or as a character? But how would I feel if I got stuck at arguably the worst haunt that the event's ever done? Like, that's gotta suck, right? And I kind of got in my head a little bit about that the next couple of years. It's like, well, I don't want to go to HHN and I don't want to work HHN and get stuck at the one haunt that I think is crap. Well, all of the other ones are incredible, and I'm just, you know, I get FOMO every night I'm at work. That would suck. But I can't speak on behalf of those that worked at the venues, but I'm sure there have been people that have worked HHN, characters, ops, techs, you name it, that have had the same feelings. Why do I want, like, I wish I was at a better haunt. This one's kind of mid. But do those people still show up every night? Yes, they do. Do they do the absolute best that they can, even though the perception of their haunt, their experience, is already tainted to be the negative before guests even go in? Absolutely. So, you know, Fort Nightmares, kind of a mad concept. Maybe the costumes will be a little cartoony and not good. Maybe it won't work altogether. But even if it doesn't work, there is going to be a core group of characters. There's going to be designers, lighting technicians, set designers. There's going to be a slew of people that put everything they have into trying to make this zone that seems doomed to be unsuccessful into something that is, you know, better. You know, I'm sure at some point all of us have gone to work and been like, I really don't want to do this, but I've still got to do it. It's my job. I've said everything I can to try and change the outcome, but this is the direction we're going. Fort Nightmares. This is the directions that's been chosen. The options are, well, potentially the direction that has been chosen. And if the options come down to not participating or trying to make it the best it can be, I think more people are going to choose the latter. They're going to put their heart and soul into something, even if it seems doomed to fail. So, even if we're all still allowed to be upset about Fort Nightmares if it's true. We're not asking everyone to love this zone or this idea or accept it. Obviously, let your feedback be heard to Universal. Answer those surveys. Do all that jazz. But also don't forget all the hard work that is going into it by people who didn't really have a choice, who are just trying to do their best and are trying to turn something that you aren't excited about into a positive experience for you. So don't forget that. Excuse me. And hey, maybe we'll get some cool set pieces. Maybe we'll get some cool effects. Maybe we'll get some cool HHN tie-in stuff that will make it into the games and make HHN more of a phenomenon than it already is. Maybe we'll get HHN haunts in Fortnite. Who knows? You know, if the deal is you get all of this cool stuff, but you have to have Fort Nightmares, that might be a great trade-off. We don't know what all that cool stuff is yet. So I think everyone's maybe jumping the gun just a little bit too much on the Fort Nightmares hate. You know, everyone jumped on Five Nights at Freddy's last year. Varying opinions. I know there are several people in this chat that did not like the haunt anywhere close to as much as I did. But still, they didn't drop the ball. They could have done something cheap and not as intricate as they did. They could have just done something borderline passable because it's the biggest horror property, or it was the most current horror property at the time. It was a big deal. They didn't need to build a giant soundstage haunt out of it. They could have shoved that in Fast and Furious and had a few costumes and people still would have showed up. People still would have bought in the merch. They did not have to do all of the things that they did. So do not jump the gun before we know a little bit more. That's all I have to say on that. I guess since we're talking about Hollywood in the chat, let's pop over there and see. Do you guys have anything particular that you think is going to be brought back in our theoretical 35 years anniversary scare zone? Now, let me... Ooh, Miss...
How do we get in touch about Media Night events?
Thank you. How do we get in touch about Media Night events? I don't know. I think you just email Universal. I haven't really looked into it too much, honestly, but one of these days I might. I appreciate the support. That's awesome. Anyways, let me see if I have anything here for... the years are messing me up. 2010's anniversary scare zone from HHN 20. Those... Oh, you meant me? Email me, 6billion@gmail.com. I think it's in the links in the description. If not, I'll make sure it is. And I will post it there at some point. I don't know if I have anything saved. I might actually just go to the wiki real quick. Oh, well. But the anniversary event for 2010 was one of my favorites because it was super, super detailed. We kind of talked about 2015 and Jack Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem, how that was like the best. I need to learn to type and talk. How that is the best anniversary scare zone or anniversary haunt that we had. And I still agree. I think the things that haunt did right was not necessarily focusing on the things that I want to see. I hate to say it because I would love to see more just warehouse nerd gallery exhibit stuff, but I think having it in the streets in the vein of a scare zone is something that works a little bit better because people can stop and look and take pictures and experience it and not hold up the run trying to look for Easter eggs. And they're also not just necessarily the most what's the word, exciting environments to do scares in. Let's see here. Photo quality in 2010 was nowhere near as good as it is now, but let me see if I can find a good.
I'm reminded of that every time I go back to look at old pictures I have.
Yeah. Is that so?
Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking.
But no, this is a cool prop warehouse type of idea, and I think the prop warehouses certainly have a very big place at the event, whether it's a tribute store, a haunted house, or something like these scare zones. Whee! But I want to see something that's a little bit more than what we got for 2021 with Eddie and Josh. I don't even remember what it is. I'm sorry that I'm terrible graveyard co-host. Was it 30 Years, 30 Fears? Was that the Eddie Zone? No, it was Lights, Camera, Haction, the sequel, something. It's all good. I love Miss Fan Culture. You don't have to do anything to distract me. I'll do it all on my own. I promise. I'm very good at it. Oh, that's a good segue. What about Premium Scream Night? Any expectations? I think it's going to be better than last year for sure. Obviously, the first night or the first year they did it was untouchable. It was the best night experience I've had at HHN in possibly ever. The core idea is phenomenal, and it worked really well. And I think they tried a little too hard to outdo it the following year. They made a goof, and I think Universal's very well that they made a goof based off of all of the reactions and all of the videos, posts, what have you, all the feedback. But again, Universal didn't have to offer $75 off for everyone who went last year. Even if only 50% of them return, I still think that's cool. They acknowledged it. So not only did I get $75 off this year, but I was also able to go to guest services, leave my feedback about the experience last year, the overcrowding, not being able to experience all the food, long waits and lines, and I was able to get some type of compensation for that. So, I'm saving money on Premium Scream this year already, the way I look at it. And Universal is generally very good about feedback and making a memorable experience. So guess what? If it's bad this year, I'm sure that I can go to guest services and give them a piece of my mind, and they will listen respectfully, and they'll give me some form of adequate compensation. Not gonna do it because I'm not gonna do it just for the sake of doing it, because that's not the type of person that I am. But what's the worst that could happen? I have a bad night and they apologize and learn better, and then I don't go again. I think that the overcrowding last year was a very prominent and a very big issue, and I think that they've learned from that, and I think that the only way, especially for an anniversary year, there's no way that doesn't get better this year, especially with adding a second night. If anything, I'd be more worried about the October event because, not to sound crass, but who cares about HHN on a Monday in October? And that, I haven't done my research. That might be Hell Week, which might be why it is that week. But I have a feeling by that point, most people who've already gone to HHN have gone to HHN. They're going to go to the first one because they want to see it before everyone else, or they went opening weekend, or what have you. So maybe I'm a little wrong. Maybe the October premium scream will be a little bit better because people will be waiting. That'll be their one night. Instead of doing a week at HHN or a weekend, they can do just one premium scream and have at it. I'm more curious how that's going to work for the character schedules. Because that would be 6 days in a row, I think, with only one day off. Unless there's a night of HHN in between there that's not happening that I haven't taken a look at. But I don't know. I just cannot see the October event generating as much buzz, or the October date. And I can't see it as being as exciting as August, especially when, you know, someone like me who would go to Premium Scream, who does go to Premium Scream, if it's October and I've already been to HHN however many times, I could just go at midnight and enjoy the last hour and a half, 2 hours of the event with the walk-on crowds and get more or less the same experience. But for those coming from out of town, maybe, again, it's a good way to do a shorter trip, but to still be able to experience as much. I know there's a lot of international visitors for HHN as well that stay for like weeks at a time. So I have to question, if you're already doing HHN for weeks, would it be a good idea to do one in October, or would that be a draw? I digress. I'm sure the reason it exists is based off of past feedback, so even if it's not applicable to me, I'm sure that there's a good reason. There's people who have asked for it. So, but I'm optimistic this year. I'm optimistic that Premium Scream will be better. I don't really care about pulsing in haunted houses. I don't go to HHN because I know I'm going to get pulsed. HHN has its formula. HHN has its own feel. Again, if I really wanted to be pulsed, I would just be one of the last people to go through at the end of the night, more or less, and get the same experience. So that does nothing for me. Let me pop back to chat since I've been rambling here for a bit. Yeah, try giving them a call, Janice, about PSN. I called them today because I got the email about the discount 25 minutes after I had already purchased my ticket. And I finally, with my work schedule, had time to contact them and call them today. They just, as soon as I called them, they just asked for my email address. They were able to verify that I received, or I purchased a ticket with the same email address last year, and they didn't even ask for my confirmation number or any of that jazz. So give them a call and they could probably verify it that way. So yeah, I have $80 more now when you factor in tax that I can spend on HHN merch. Yay. Yeah, I agree. I hope everyone is scared away for August PSN. I know they aren't going to be, but we can dream at the same time. As long as I'm able to get as long as I'm able to get like 5 to 10 food items and at least each haunt like twice, I think I'll be happy. All right, off of the ramble. Let's see, anything that you guys specifically want to talk about as far as speculation goes as well, before I move on to my few little extra things that I have. I'll take a look at that in a little bit. Miss Fan Culture, I did see it pop up. I very much appreciate it. You awesome. That's awesome. I'm so excited. What did I have in my notes? I already talked about Four Nightmares. And, oh yeah, the show. Duh. I was talking about this with Josh. Can't believe I forgot to mention it. So, looks like we're not getting Nightmare Fuel again. For better or worse. I'm not going to talk down on the show because it wasn't necessarily my thing. But, you know, it's had its tenure. It's been 5 years. When I did HHN trivia last year, that was one of the questions, is what is the longest tenured shows at HHN? And while I do not remember the answers, 5 years was the limit for, I believe, everything. I think we got Rocky Horror, well, not Bill and Ted. That was kind of a anomaly. But Rocky Horror Picture Show, I'm trying to remember what else. The longest running shows all ran for 5 years. So it would, so Nightmare Fuel leaving potentially isn't that big of a shock to me. But, excuse me, what I see when I see these 4 boxes is I see Jack in the Boxes or crates. For those of you who have not been as nerdy about HHN for as long as I have, 2016, or 2006, which is way longer ago than I would like to admit, was kind of the first big anniversary HHN event, and they had a stage show called The Arrival, where the 4 big icons at that time came in and did their little spiel. Essentially what we got in 2015's Icon Zone, but in stage show format. There was a lot of things that were lifted from that show for that scare zone. But anyways, this would be the perfect year to bring something like that back. Now, with Jack and Oddfellow confirmed as being the icons, I don't think that Jack, director, storyteller, and the caretaker would be our 4, would be our 4 heralds, our 4 hosts. I think we get Jack and Dr. Oddfellow for sure. But then earlier today, I saw something else that had a post with this, and it was the other 2 were Chance and Lady Luck. Now, and Chance, obviously, I can see. She's been Jack's right hand for a while, main character role in the Carnage Returns 2015 stage show. But Lady Luck is a weird pull, and, you know, as somebody who... guess you can't really see it on my camera. As somebody who's simps hardcore for 2011, if Lady Luck comes back in any capacity this year that is better than her appearance in Icons, we're going to be eating good. Your boy's going to be happy. So, have a good night, Fallon. Thanks for popping by. I appreciate it. What was I going to say? But I think this is the type of theme park entertainment that HHN needs. Zoom out. You know, if we are getting some type of brand new Icon stage show, I think that's something unique, and that's something that you can't get when you go to Hallow Scream or other Hallow Scream or other events, is you don't get as many character-centric shows, or at least character-centric shows of this caliber. It's a lot of easily digestible, flashy entertainment. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing. You know, Bill and Ted was certainly no Oscar-winning premiere experience, but I want to see narratives when I see theme park, or when I go to Halloween Horror Nights. I want to see a show that's narrative. I want to see a show that feels different, that still has the vibes, but isn't just, you know, something that I feel like I've seen before. And as impressive as Nightmare Fuel was, and how I could never dream of doing any of those stunts myself, you know, I go to Hallow Scream. They've got very similar shows. Maybe not as good, but the vibes are still there. It's one of those, you know, in the 2000s, Cedar Fair had everybody's, how do I phrase this? I shouldn't say everyone's first haunt was Cedar Fair, but, you know, Cedar Fair had their staples. So many people went to Cedar Fair Halloween events at their local park, and so many ideas and concepts were shared. You know, Cornstalkers or Hellside Farm, Carnival or a killer clown type haunt, the Asylum, the Mangler Asylum. Like, these are haunts that you see all the way across the country, and that's not even counting all of the non-theme park attractions that were doing the same type of thing. And I feel like this is kind of where we're at in the theme park or the Halloween event landscape right now as well. Is, you know, we've got these staples, we've got magic shows, we've got stunt shows and effects, but there's not as many outliers as I would like to see. So again, I don't think 2021 had a show like the Carnage Returns or an Icon show. I honestly can't remember, because I only went 1.5 nights that year, and it was a nightmare. But to see something like the Carnage Return potentially come back, it's game in my book. That's awesome. I'm 100% here for it, and I will be there more than just once a night. Once a week, I will be seeing the show more than once. All right. I think that for the most part kind of wraps up what we haven't talked about already. If there's anything y'all would like to add before I dip out in a little bit here. just to guess a quick recap of what we do have. Jack and Oddfellow, Chaos and Control, of course, confirmed. Theoretically, we're getting Evil Dead Burn. Evil Dead, I think, is a phenomenal franchise when it comes to HHN. At first, Evil Dead was a bit of a blunder, but potential for gore, potential for atmosphere, potential for scares, but also the potential for comedy. There's a lot of different avenues they could go down with an Evil Dead haunt. Even without seeing the movie, I think this is a good one. This could be a good one. We got our rock and roll for Ozzy Osbourne is the rumor, I think, right now. Ice Nine Kills. I don't know. I know I just talked about how Halloween needs to get, or Halloween events need to stop getting, or need to get rid of their tropes and be more individual and not copy the same few ideas across properties. But, you know, rock and roll and heavy metal is very synonymous with HHN or with Halloween, even if it's always the same new metal Slipknot stuff that's always playing. But The Weeknd showed us that music haunts, when done correctly, can be done very well. And sound design is a huge part of good maze design. So if we can integrate music or a soundtrack, an accessible soundtrack, into a very good haunt, that's a match made in heaven. I mean, Josh, you might know the answer to this more than I do. How many years has Slash been doing the soundtracks for Hollywood? It's been like 5 years now. It's been like 5 years consecutively, but he also did, I want to say it was the Clowns 3D haunt in like 2009 or something, 2011, 2013, whatever that one was, he did the soundtrack for. So I think music and Halloween, I think there's a very good success story to be had there. No idea what all this BuzzCon makeup is about. That's something that remains to be seen. But Janice, I agree. Not very excited about Stranger Things. Hollywood in 2024, when they did their Stranger Things haunt, they deviated from Orlando, I believe, because they didn't just do season 4. They did a greatest hits. So maybe that would work. I texted Josh right when the season started, and I said, you know, if they stick to the suburban aspects of this, I don't really want to see Stranger Things again. But if we do like a supernatural version of Halloween where it's just kind of the town of Hawkins itself and not constantly going to the in-between and the tunnels and stuff, I think there's a good suburban slasher style Stranger Things haunt hidden within season 5 somewhere. It's just whether we decide to do that or move on to more screens. And I guess a real quick segue, at MegaCon, when the announcement for Jack and Oddfellow was announced, it was confirmed to have big projections, multimedia, and all that. So since we're getting a lot of projection mapping, or at least digital projection in some form in the Jack and Oddfellow haunt, does that mean that, one, we're not going to get it anywhere else? We're not going to get something like the Vecna's Mind Layer backdrop or the Demobat backdrop from for Stranger Things 4, or does it mean that this technology is more accessible and we're going to see more digital mapping across more haunts to try and create bigger scenes? The answer remains to be seen. I'm hoping towards the former, but you know, Universal generally, in my mind at least, has a pretty good track record of being able to pull back on a series when it doesn't, when it stops doing when it's not done as well as it could be. American Horror Story, Exorcist, just off the top of my head, trying to think of the countdown. Universal Monsters, even to an extent, even though I'm the lone outlier that didn't really like Unmasked. Feel like they have a good way of pulling in a different direction and not necessarily just repeating the ideas. And now that we've had like 1.5 unsuccessful Stranger Things haunts in a row, I think there's hopefully potential to see something better, but I'm not holding my breath. Real quick segue before we talk. Well, I guess I already kind of talked about Blood and Guts. I've heard HR Blood and Guts. I've heard Run. I've heard a combination of the two. I don't know. We already have Jack and Oddfellow. Do we really need HR Blood and Guts as Eddie? HR Blood and Guts and Eddie? Run as its own concept as this gory, gruesome, intense game show was fine. It was a great concept. When it kind of got muddled down for 2015's Blood, Sweat, and Fears into the campier game show, still wasn't an awful idea, but the execution was just not memorable. And I just... Why do we gotta bring Run into everything, man? Run was great as it is. I hope it gets left alone so it can remain... its memory can remain untouched. Leave HR Blood and Guts as is. Hopefully I'll be pleasantly surprised with whatever comes up, but you know, these are two strong personalities that don't need a supporting cast. You can plop them anywhere and they can more or less make money out of it. But I don't even think Eddie was in Blood, Sweat, and Fears, or even referenced, now that I think about it. But anyways, my quick segue as we kind of go to the tents. 2011 is still my favorite year of HHN. And that's the standard that I kind of hold every year too. But the event has grown in that time. I think I've said this before, but you know, when I started going, HHN had 8 haunts a year. Now we're up to 10. So in my book, if we can get 8 really good haunts that like match 2011, more or less, that means that 2 of these haunts can be like terrible, stinkers, poopy, absolutely forget about them immediately, and they would still be on par with the best year that I've seen at the event. So, you know, and Mike Aiello has talked about this in panels and whatnot as well, but they have to, you can't make mazes that just cater to the fans. They have to cater to those who are casually there to do a couple of haunts and drink beer. There's a balance to everything. And that balance is going to automatically mean that there are going to be some things that work for some people that don't work for others. That's just my 2 cents. Finishing out this map here real quick. Oh, I didn't talk about the scare zones, did I? Killer Clown's probably coming back from what I've heard, and I'm assuming this would be our Minion Land will just be a generic carnival theme. I don't think, sadly, we're going to get the gates dressed up like we did for 2007 due to traffic and all of that stuff, but I'll be pleasantly surprised. There's a year to go all out with the decorations again and bring something back. It would be an anniversary year. I haven't been able to come up with an idea for what tent 4 could be if it's not Sinners, but I feel like a lighter with 2 cigarettes, I feel like that's too obvious of a hint or design or a clue. I'm not excited for Sinners. You know, there's, I think 35% of you that voted on the poll that I posted on Monday said that you were not so stoked for the IPs. And even though I think Sinners would be a good haunt or has the potential to be a good haunt, it's a single location, more or less. Climax is essentially what they could base the haunt off of. And yeah, there's a few scenes where they go up, spoiler alert, I guess. There's a couple scenes where they go outside and out into the woods at the end. But overall, there's just not a lot of variety to really make a good Sinners type haunt. And we talked about this with Aliens down below, Blood Moon, Darkest Deal, Hatchet and Chains. We've already kind of gone through that aesthetic several times in the last 3 years, and we've done it 3 times. That was excellent and really well done. How can Sinners stand out besides being an IP? Maybe it can, maybe it can't. The one thing that I would like to see, everyone called, shouldn't say everyone, but many people just called Sinners a ripoff of From Dusk Till Dawn, which I wouldn't say is entirely true. Oh, come on, where is it? But if we're talking about ripping off From Dusk Till Dawn, Sinner's Haunted House could very easily rip off From Dusk Till Dawn Haunted House, and I'd be happy with that. Apparently I don't have it anywhere. Back to the wiki it is. Talked about From Dusk Till Dawn in the last Countdown episode, but for those of you who didn't experience it, that was one of the ones that, you know, I don't think anyone had any expectations for. It's a bar with vampires, you know, very cut and dry concept. But what it did was really surprising because you started in the bar, you got the little, you got the exposition out of the way, and then you spent the next half of the haunt in these underground labyrinths, really seeing the meat of the haunt with some really big set pieces and some really cool stuff. And then at the end, you went back into the bar, and you did this giant sprawling finale. Come on, it's hard to get a picture or find a picture of it because it was like 4 rooms connected in one. Like it was literally, it was in Soundstage 22. So imagine pretty much when you went outside in LRT still last year and you went into the courtyard, pretty much imagine that until that through the end of the house just being one long interconnected room without any transitions. And it was the shootout of the Twister bar. And I think doing something like that when it comes to a Sinner's Haunt could work well. There's definitely got to be some type of, even if it's low quality, Screamscape coming in clutch maybe. Excuse me. Let's see here if this has decent quality. A little dark. But yeah, you came out from the bar here. There was some stuff on the left hand, or some scares that came out on the left hand side. Then you had the Gecko Brothers. There's one on the right, one on the left that would pop out doing the shootout. And then you come on around to the main attraction of the bar. You've got your big distraction scare with name that I cannot pronounce off the top of my head right now, and some more. So I think something like that could definitely work for Sinners, but other interpretations I am less optimistic about. Yex Slayer, what's up? Welcome to the stream. I'm glad you were able to stop by. Love seeing a friendly face and a channel member pop in. Makes me feel loved. Yeah, if there's any, we're wrapping up talking about spec here, so if there's anything in particular that you want to hear me talk about or you want to mention, drop it in the chat and we'll try and cover that real quick before we wrap up. Pincushion we talked about at the beginning of the stream, or at least briefly mentioned. We got Hellraiser. I think Hellraiser could be so cool. I'm working on the finale of the countdown right now, which sounds weird or feels weird to say, but I think I just was going through the in-between from 2011 and revisiting the trippy 3D effects, and I wish we could see something, or I hope Hellraiser kind of has that same out-of-this-world vibe. Speaking of, hold on here real quick. This would not be the first time that Hellraiser has made it to HHN, if you did not know. All Night Die-In, Take 2 from 2006, actually featured Hellraiser. And I don't know if there's actually any official... There's no official pictures of it. I don't know if there's any unofficial ones. There are a few unofficial ones, so I will not post them here, but feel free to go to the HHN wiki and look at All Night Die-In if you want to see some scenes from, well, Scream also was in that haunt. Crazy. But if you want to see some Pinhead stuff, you guys can head over there and take a look at it. And then we've got our zoo animals. Something like a Carrie version of Nightingale's Blood Pit or something? I don't know. I can't remember if I've talked about Not Scary Farms Haunt, the zoo, on this stream or not yet. It will be coming soon. I can tell you that much when I do my Knots videos after the HHN countdown. But the zoo is one of the coolest haunts I have ever done. Josh, stop hating on me from the comments whenever you watch this back. Josh was not as enamored with this haunt as I was. But I want to show you guys, if my computer doesn't crash, a few... Said if my computer doesn't crash... There we go. A few of the cool things that they did here that I don't necessarily think that Universal would quote unquote copy
Audio's loud.
my audio go out.
No, it was just the audio from the video was loud.
Oh, it wasn't muted. I'm sorry. I made sure everything else was muted. That should count. But this had this nice, grand, ornate entrance, which is something that I would like to see tackled at HHN again. But where is the aerial? Where is... This is the best aerial scare I've ever seen in my life. And I don't think anybody really caught it on camera. But right at the top here, there's a vulture that was on a wire. And they would fly perpendicular across this room. So they would be flying from left to right. We'll see if anything catches here. They would fly over this wall that they're walking around right now. And then this entire hallway at the top, there it is. They would fly over you. So cool. Best scare I've ever gotten. All right. So if we do get Zoo, I hope we see something like that. Anyways, I think that's about all that I have to talk about HHN-wise. Hearing something about Hellraiser being sort of an original take on things, maybe a sort of cemetery? Huh, that'd be interesting. I'll be honest, I haven't heard much about Hellraiser other than it's Hellraiser. So, it would be curious to see them do some type of original take on these IPs. I kind of talked about it in the countdown, but, you know, it used to be a lot more commonplace. Alien vs. Predator, spoiler alert, is in the next chunk of haunts that I'm working on, and that was one where it was a very definitely original take on an established story, an established IP, an established idea, and we really haven't gotten anything like that since. I would love to see something where it takes place in the Hellraiser universe, maybe even a greatest hits of the Hellraiser scenes, but doesn't follow any particular stories or plot points. I think that would be phenomenal. I think that would be awesome. But if we're just looking at this map theoretically here as a whole, how are we feeling about the balance? I've been kind of trying to think about it through this stream, but I don't really know, because, you know, we've got Evil Dead, we've got Blood and Guts, and we've got Hellraiser, and heck, let's even throw whatever the Zoo ends up being in there. That's four very, very gory haunts, potentially. You know, BuzzCon, makeup, body horror, that's also a very gory year. Is gore necessarily good or scary? Open to interpretation, but there's a lot of, I don't know, feel like if we go off face value right now, there's some gaps missing. I don't really see a haha funny haunt. Maybe Blood and Guts ends up being haha funny, or lighthearted, or campy, one of those, which the event doesn't necessarily need, but I don't know. This feels like a very weird anniversary year. This feels like trying to mesh together trying to do a better job of what 2015 didn't deliver on, but also not being so far removed from the HHN history that we get kind of an original year, or kind of an anniversary year that only kind of feels like an anniversary year in the sense of 2021. I mean, I thought Oddfellow in 2023 felt much more like a full-fledged HHN anniversary event than 2021 did. And speaking of HHN Graveyard, I'll post the link in the description if I haven't already, but me and my buddy Josh, we've been doing podcast episodes talking about HHN. So we just wrapped up doing our reviews for all of the events this year. And that's not just Orlando and Hollywood, all of the international ones, and Horror Unleashed as well. And now we're kind of moving on to, you know, the rest of it. And the next episode we're going to be filming is going to be about 2021's anniversary year. Some deeper dives into the haunts, our opinions on what worked, what didn't, exploring the history, all of that stuff. Just kind of doing a, you know, hour-long retrospective if you need something to listen to on the way to work or while you're vibing or gaming. We're trying to get least one of these graveyard episodes out every 2 weeks. I hope they're fun. I hope you guys like them. I hope you check them out, because it gives me an opportunity to talk about things that might not fit in videos or might be too rambly for live streams, or just gets me thinking in general about things that I want to talk about that makes my content better. So go check those out if you guys will. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And there's some really cool stuff we talked about from the international events. I unfortunately was not able to go in person, but from the footage I saw from Josh and other YouTube videos and just hearing his experiences, man, there's some crazy, crazy, crazy stuff out there that you guys, that makes this stuff look like child's play stateside. But yeah, if there's anything that you guys want to talk about or anything you guys want to hear about for HHN leading up to that season, or leading up to this season, let me know. Do you want to hear us do a podcast episode about Jack and Oddfellow lore? Do you want to hear us talk about our favorite years? What games or trivia or quizzes do you guys want to hear on that stuff? You know, we're in it to have fun and be nerds. So, with that shameless plug out of the way, I think that's about all I've got. Anything final wishes you want to post in the chat, you are more than welcome to. But I think it is customary that we end this stream, as we do with most, with a visit from the Scaredy Cats. That's your cue. Thanks. So we're going to see if any of the Scaredy Cats are up here. They... Well,
the majority of it, and then she ran.
And say they have been sitting down here more frequently. And is Cohen not wheezing over there on the couch?
No.
But yes, I'm very excited for this year. When do I think we're going to start getting announcements? No idea. I'd say probably March we start seeing things ramp up more. Maybe I'll do a stream and talk about Hollywood coverage or a Hollywood spec a little bit later, but I do not have much stake in the Hollywood game. It's a fun event. I'm excited to see where it goes this year. And speaking of, I don't know if I'm going to stream before I make it out there, but next month, beginning of May, I will be at FanFest nights at Hollywood, or at Universal Hollywood with Josh. So maybe I'll try and make a video out of it. I'm going to have my camera with. Maybe I'll do a stream. Maybe I'll do a video. Maybe I'll do some shorts. I'll figure something out. But
this is the one I could find.
It's Dacini. But I will be at FanFest night, so I'm very excited to see how that compares to HHN. And you know, I think we get plenty of things at HHN right now that maybe don't fit at HHN. So hopefully, okay, Cranky Butt, you can go. But hopefully, if we see FanFest as an event start to grow, maybe we get HHN and HHN Light. We get 2 HHNs a year. I can't think of anything better than that, except for maybe 2 Not Scary Farms a year, or maybe 4 new mazes at Not Scary Farm a year, something like that. Yes, this is the angry one. Just Chino. He's in the thumbnail. You're famous. Somebody was very cuddly with me today, but he does not like to be cuddly right now. You can let him run away. We got one scaredy cat on stream, so that's better track record than some. There's one other thing I think I was going to say when I left, but I don't remember where it was. Oh yeah, channel members. If any of you all are still hanging out in here, I think Sunday night this week, we'll pop in and do a stream. I don't know what it's going to be editing. I don't know if it's going to be for the countdown or if we're going to start going through some Knots stuff. It's going to kind of it's going to depend on how my work weekend goes and how getting the rest of this countdown series done tomorrow. Or working on tomorrow. Yeah, I'm packing. On top of going to FanFest in a month, I will be in Orlando next week for my best friend's wedding. So, yeah! You might say, Billy, weren't you just in Orlando for your best friend's wedding? Yes, I was. I have 2 best friends. They both got married within 6 months of each other. And I'm very happy and excited to visit, or to be a part of both of their weddings. So, I'll be in Orlando next week, so I won't be able to get as much editing done, but we're still gonna work on it and get some stuff written. Don't be upset about Fortnitemares. Be positive. There's a ton of people working behind the scenes to try and make this event a success, even if our ideas don't necessarily align with what comes to fruition or what we end up seeing. So thank you for tuning in, everyone. I appreciate all the support. We'll make this, I'll get better at doing wrap-ups at some point. Every stream won't be like Lord of the Rings, where there's like 17 different endings in an hour. But yeah, we'll do some more streams when I get back. Channel members will do some stuff. We'll start getting Knott's videos out. We'll get HHN Countdown wrapped up. We'll do a bunch of Graveyard episodes. I am working on content more than I've ever been working on content before. So lots and lots and lots of excitement coming your way. Appreciate everyone stopping by. Everyone have a good night. I don't have any more scaredy cats. They all ran away. So I hope that... So I hope everyone has a good night. I'll see y'all soon. Hopefully we'll have a new announcement to talk about. Take care, y'all. What? Okay, now I can go. Okay, bye.